Is sand a rock? Contents. So many grains of sand. Page 4. Crashing waves. 6. Sand up close. 8. From mountain to ocean. 10. Freezing and cracking. 12. Traveling the world. 14. Sand from shells. 16. Green sand, black sand. 18. Tiny but amazing. 20. Science lab. 22. Science words. 23. Index. 24. Read more. 24. Learn more online. 24. About the author. 24. So many grains of sand. It's fun to spend the day on a sandy beach. You can build sand castles or make pictures in wet sand. You can push your toes into the sand's squishy softness. Have you ever wondered, though, what sand is made of? Also, where do all those grains of sand come from? Every single grain of sand on Earth is different. No two grains have the same shape. Crashing waves. One way that sand forms is when waves crash against rocky cliffs. Being hit by the waves makes the cliffs slowly start to crack and crumble. Tiny pieces of rock fall into the sea. Then the pieces are washed up on the shore. Each one is a grain of sand. Over time, trillions of grains of sand pile up on the shore and form a beach. Sometimes large chunks of rock break off from cliffs and fall into the ocean. There, the rocks smash into one another and break into smaller and smaller pieces. These rocks also become sand. Rocky cliffs. Waves. Sand up close. The sand on a beach can feel soft and powdery, so it might be hard to believe that it comes from hard, solid rock. When sand is viewed under a microscope, however, the tiny chunks of rock can be seen. Surprisingly, they might look very different from one another. That's because not all the grains of sand on the beach came from rocky cliffs. Where did the rest come from? Sand. This photograph of sand was taken by a powerful microscope. The grains of sand in the picture are 125 times bigger than in real life. Choose 3 grains of sand in the picture and describe them. What color is each one? What does its shape remind you of? From mountain to ocean. Some of the sand on a beach might have started out as a mountainside. When it rains, water flows down a mountain's rocky slopes. The water wears away the rock and tiny pieces break off. Then the rainwater trickles into a river and the rock goes along with it. In time, the river carries the rock from the mountain into the ocean. Then the rock is washed up on a beach as sand. Many large lakes have sandy beaches. The sand comes from mountains and other rocky places that may be many miles away. The sand is carried to the lake's shores by rivers. Mountain, pieces of rock, river, sandy beach, pieces of rock, ocean. Freezing and cracking. There is another way that the weather can help make sand. Sometimes melted snow trickles into a crack in a rock. When the weather gets colder, the water freezes. As the water turns to ice, it expands or gets bigger and pushes the crack open. As the rock cracks and splits, tiny pieces of it break off. Then melted snow or rain washes these grains of sand into rivers and out to sea. Scientists can study sand on a beach to find out what kind of rock it is made up of. Once they know, they can figure out which mountain or rocky place the sand came from. There is a crack in a rock. Crack. Water gets into the crack and freezes. The ice expands. 3. The rock splits open. Pieces of broken rock. Sometimes sand from a desert may travel many miles to a beach. How do you think this sand is moved? Traveling the world. Sand can be moved from place to place by the wind. Sometimes the wind blows across a sandy desert and picks up grains of sand. Then it can carry them long distances to a beach. Sand from the Sahara Desert in Africa has been blown to beaches in Florida. That's a journey of more than 5,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers. Sand blowing across a desert. Just like rain, wind can wear away rocks and make sand. How? When wind blows, it often picks up loose pieces of sand or dirt. The flying sand or dirt then rubs against large rocks. As a result, tiny pieces, which are new grains of sand, break off. Sahara Desert, Miami Beach, Florida. Here we have a map showing the Pacific Ocean, Sahara Desert, with an arrow coming over here to Florida. Sand from shells. On many beaches, most of the sand is made up of pieces of rock. Some sand, however, is made from the shells of animals, such as crabs and clams. When these creatures die, their shells get crushed and broken in the ocean. Then the tiny pieces of shell get washed up on beaches. Like shells, the skeletons of ocean animals, such as corals, sea urchins, and sponges, also break into tiny pieces. Then they get washed up on beaches as sand too. A piece of a sponge's skeleton, a piece of coral, a piece of shell. Green sand, black sand. Sand can be white, gray, yellow, brown, pink, red, green, and even black. That's because sand gets its color from minerals, the hard substances that make up rocks. Minerals can be many different colors. In Hawaii, there is a beach with greenish-brown sand. The sand comes from a rock that contains a green-colored mineral called opaline or olivine. A beach with greenish-brown sand. Grains of olivine viewed under a microscope. Hawaii also has beaches with black sand. This sand is made from a kind of rock called basalt. Tiny but amazing. Next time you are at the beach, take a close-up look at the sand. Perhaps it is made from the shells of tiny sea animals. Maybe the tiny sand grains started out as part of a rocky cliff or mountain. Also, think about this. You might be standing on sand that was once part of a faraway desert. Some beaches have pale pink sand. The sand gets its color from billions of tiny pieces of broken pink shells. A close-up view of pink sand from a beach. Science lab. Make some sand. You can try making sand using small rocks or stones from a garden or beach. You will need 10 stones. Try to find different kinds. Metal container with a tight lid, such as a coffee can. Water, coffee filter. Place the stones in the container and pour in enough water to cover them. Put the lid on the container. Make sure it's on tight. Now, shake the container 1,000 times. Try splitting the shakes into 10 groups of 100. You don't have to do all of them at the same time or even on the same day. When you have shaken the container 1,000 times, remove the stones from the water. Ask a helper to hold a coffee filter over a sink. Slowly pour the water into the filter. Describe what you see in the filter. How is what happens inside the can like what happens in real life? Make sure not to put rocks down your drain. See page 24 for the answers. Science words: desert, dry land with few plants and little rainfall. Deserts are often covered in sand. Minerals, the solid substances found in nature that make up rocks. Shells, hard outer coverings that protect the bodies of some animals such as clams, mussels, and crabs. Microscope, a tool or machine used to see things that are too small to see with the eyes alone. Index, beach, cliffs, color, desert, ice, lakes, microscope, minerals, mountains, ocean animals, ocean waves, rainwater, rivers, shells, skeletons, wind. Read more. Learn more online. About the author. Answers. Page 22. In the filter, you will find tiny grains of rock. Together the grains make sand. When the rocks are shaken, it is like what happens to small pieces of rock in a river. The rocks are smashed against one another by the rushing river water. As a result, they break into tiny pieces or grains. Let's take the quiz. What is the main idea of this text? Sand is formed in many ways and is made up of many things. Sand can be white, gray, yellow, brown, pink, or green. Sand. Sand can feel soft and powdery. How does rain cause a mountain to break down? Rain wears away the rocks and pulls away the broken rocks. Rain makes the rocks melt and get smaller. Rocks get wet. Which does not help form sand? Children playing with sand, waves crashing against rocks, freezing water that cracks rocks open. What item is not regularly found in sand? Crushed shells, glass, ocean animals / hummus or humus. Sand gets its color from minerals, the air, the ocean. If you get less than 100%, you can always go back and retake the quiz. Remember, go back and reread. You can always flip the book back and find the answers to the questions. That's what good readers do. They often go back to reread.